Welcome to Readings from Roberto, bringing you the wisdom and experience of Roberto Assagioli and Psychosynthesis through readings of his essays and lectures. We hope you enjoy this and gain a benefit that can be shared with others. Spiritual Elements of the Personality, Love, by Dr. Roberto Assagioli, translated from the Italian and read by Jan Kuniholm. In our examination of the spiritual energies that descend into the personality, we have spoken of moral sense, knowledge, and beauty. Today we will speak of another very important one, love. Love is one of the most widespread aspects of life, one of the most universal feelings and activities. Yet it is perhaps the least understood, about which there is the greatest confusion and lack of understanding, and where the most serious mistakes are made, which are the source of many complications and painful sufferings that torment poor humanity. Therefore, it is useful, indeed necessary, to understand what love is in order to love well. The confusion and errors that exist in this regard should not be too surprising if we consider that love has cosmic origins, nature, and functions, and that it is often something overwhelming which dominates and overpowers the individual. It is something that has very different and apparently contradictory inner and outer manifestations. There is, in fact, physical love and spiritual love. There is love that desires, that attracts to itself, and that absorbs. There is a love that limits and enslaves, and another that amplifies and frees. There is a love in which the individual seems to lose himself. There is a love in which he seems to find himself. In order to bring some order and light into this confusion and these contrasts, love must be included in the great spiritual conception of life that we have mentioned. Only in this way will it be possible to penetrate the mystery to some extent. Let us recall, referring to our topic today, this spiritual conception in its broad outlines. There is an original undifferentiated unity, the absolute, the transcendent, the unmanifest. From this came manifestation, differentiation, which can be considered the projection, emanation, and self-objectification of the Supreme. This great cosmic process has various degrees. The first is that of duality. The one becomes two. This produces the first fundamental differentiation of spirit and matter, the subjective aspect and the objective aspect, energy and resistance, activity and passivity, positive pole and negative pole, masculine aspect and feminine aspect. So far, we are dealing only with the objective material aspect. It is therefore only something undifferentiated, not matter as we already know it, which is differentiated. It is precisely the original primordial aspect which can be called the relationship between the two. These two great aspects of being do not remain separate, as if indifferent to each other, but exchanges, actions, and reactions take place. And the effect of this vital attraction is creation, the manifestation of the universe as we know it. That is, the universe formed and concretized. This did not happen in an instant. There are successive differentiations within creation. There was the objectification of the planes, of the increasingly concrete and material levels of life, of increasingly limited states of consciousness. And at each level, innumerable new and successive differentiations occurred until the current state was reached, a state of division, of splitting, of strict separation of creatures, understood in the broadest sense. This, I would say, is the background, the framework, within which we place and understand love. In various ways and to various degrees, there is in creatures almost a distant and obscure memory of primordial unity, a vague sense of common origin, and an unconscious but powerful nostalgia to return to it. Every creature, every isolated being feels incomplete, insufficient, and dissatisfied. It has no peace. It seeks something without knowing what it is. It searches erringly, suffering continuous disappointments, but it cannot help but continue to search, driven by a restless craving, by a thirst that is never quenched. And it can't be any other way, because this drive, this yearning, is the expression of the great law of evolution, of the very will of God, who, after having conceived and produced the manifestation and innumerable creatures, brings them back to himself, takes them back and reunites them with himself, so that they may consciously participate in his glory and his infinite perfection. This reveals to us the secret of the nature and function of love. This yearning for completion, to unite and merge with something, with someone different from itself, is precisely the very essence of love. And such a union, such a creative and productive fusion, gives rise to something else. Just as the one, the spirit, and the two, matter, give the three, differentiated manifestation, so too the positive and the negative give rise to something else, something different, according to the nature of the elements that unite. Translating this into scientific language, it may be said that the universe can be based on the principle of polarity, according to a law of attraction and a series of acts of reproduction. These principles, these basic laws, are found in all manifestations of love, however different and contrasting they may appear at first glance. We already find it evident in inorganic matter. In the atom we have the positive charge of the nucleus and the negative charges of the electrons, and together they constitute the life and specific quality of the atom. This is generally found in electricity, where the combined positive and negative charges produce the spark that gives us light and heat. In chemical elements, love, the law of attraction and union, is demonstrated as chemical affinity, for example in acids and bases that together form salts. In the biological field and in organic plant and animal life, there is the attraction and fusion of cells. In the most elementary organisms, that is, unicellular organisms, two organisms fuse and give rise to other cells. In higher organisms, that is, multicellular organisms, there are differentiated male and female elements, by means of which sexual reproduction takes place. Now, the subjective and psychological aspect of this sexual function is the sense of powerful physical attraction. It is the instinct aroused by impressions of the senses. In this aspect, man participates in the life of sensation, but there are also other levels in him where love manifests itself. There is the emotional level, where love takes the form of emotional and sentimental attraction and the need for psychic fulfillment, which has various degrees, from the most elementary possessive passion to the most refined feelings of communion of souls. Then there is the intellectual level, where intellectual communion and the exchange of ideas with reciprocal enrichment takes place. Finally, there is the spiritual level, where other elements come into play, and we will talk about this later. So far, we have considered the simplest case of love, the tendency toward union, the law of attraction, that is, the relationship and complementarity between two elements or beings of different poles or sexes. But there are extensions, complications, and refinements of this manifestation. First of all, there are cases in which there isn't a rigid and stable polarity, like in electricity or physical sex, but an alternating fusion. So, for example, in the field of feeling and intellect, the same individual can be negative and positive, active and passive, projective and receptive. There is a greater flexibility, a greater freedom of action, and therefore also of choice. A second complication and a second development of love occurs when there is a completion, a fusion of more elements and individuals, and not just two. This already happens in the world of matter. For example, there are complex chemical combinations in which three or more elements come into play. Almost all organic compounds are of this nature, complex molecules that contain carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and other elements. In the biological field, cells are the primordial element, then groups of cells, then groups of cells that form organisms. For example, the systems each formed by a coherent, well-connected group of organs that form a unit, that perform their function in harmony, in solidarity, in love, one could say. In the human world, we find various groups held together, unified, and created by strong emotional bonds. The first one that could be called a human cell is the family. It is evident that in many cases the family constitutes a real unit, forming a small group almost isolated from the rest and held together by strong bonds of the same love, the same ideal, the same tendency. For example, religious people and religious communities. The word community means union, unity of various elements. So there are political and social groups and communities, and also intellectual ones, which number only a few hundred in the whole world. Communities such as that of astronomers, for example, who form a well-differentiated community, who speak a language that is partly incomprehensible to others. This, too, is a form of union of love. In all these groups we find the same fundamental characteristics that we spoke of in relation to love: affection, a sense of union and of completion, and a common group activity and productivity, greater and sometimes different from those that are possible for the individual. But this is not enough. We are only halfway through our examination. All these various relationships of polarity and union considered so far, in fact, all take place on the same level and are horizontal, so to speak. They are expansions in extension on the surface. The various chemical affinities take place in the chemical field. The various human affective communions take place in the affective field. Intellectual communions in the intellectual field, and so on. But there are also other relationships and completions, one could say in a vertical sense, which are in fact the most essential. Horizontal completions are insufficient and can only give partial and temporary satisfaction. But the deepest thirst is not satisfied, and therein lies the drama of passionate love, of human love in the ordinary sense. In physical love, in passionate love between one person and another, there is a perpetual dissatisfaction. Many poets and writers have sung of what happens in the soul of two beings who love each other. A thirst for the eternal, for the infinite, a profound aspiration to stop the fleeting moment, to make this small human love complete and perfect. There can be an unquenchable aspiration for its own sake that is impossible to realize, and therefore pain arises from it. The aspiration to death, to annihilation, is conceived as the only way to stop for eternity what is fleeting in itself, and in some cases is carried to the point of suicide. And all this for the reason indicated above, that is, for that sense of primordial unity that it originates in a plane other than the horizontal one, in something superior and transcendent, something that is at first perceived with surprise, sometimes misinterpreted, but then reveals itself more and more clearly. It is the aspiration toward the Spirit, the love toward God and supreme reality, as the union of everything and everyone. That aspiration, that restlessness, is love, was expressed in a lapidary way by St. Augustine, who said, "My heart has no peace until it rests in you." However, I will repeat, just as the revelation of this aspiration is slow and gradual, so too are its manifestations gradual and differentiated. There are various stages with very different characteristics. Before a soul can love and feel God directly, in His essence, in His inconceivable grandeur, it little by little learns to love His veiled, concrete, and individualized manifestations. His love gradually becomes broader and broader. Thus, man begins by directing his love vertically, upward, towards the Spirit, to love human beings, but superior to him, ideal ones. Human beings in whom something divine and spiritual is manifested to a greater or lesser degree. They are the heroes of humanity. They are the geniuses, the saints, the divine men like Buddha and Christ. They are like bridges, like footholds for the soul that is still unable to reach the supreme God, the universal God. Another aspect, another step towards loving God as supreme, is the love for the spirit within ourselves. This is the aspiration and attraction that the personality feels toward individuality, toward its own spiritual center, what the mystics call the inner Christ, which is truly the God immanent within us. Then there is a love for God who is conceived personally. There are two great concepts of God that are not mutually exclusive. God conceived as a personality, a sublime personality, but always as an element of personality, therefore of differentiation and manifestation. Then there is the other, more strictly mystical love between the soul and God, in which the soul has a negative aspect and attitude, in which there are reflections similar to those of human love, and the mystics speak clearly of the engagement and mystical wedding, of mystical union. Here, too, we find the same characteristics of love, a thirst for completion, union, and then projection, because these mystical souls do not passively remain to enjoy only the feeling of divine love, but feel driven to work secondarily in the bosom of humanity to bring the love they feel to all men. Then there is a broader love for others, for all creatures, a love for nature and for a particular creature or for a particular soul, but it is a universal love based on the unity of all creatures in God. And God is in everything and everyone. We will talk about this aspect, which is the highest, at another time. Today I have limited myself to this overview, and I hope to have demonstrated how this vision explains the unity and the great diversity of love in its manifestations, in the various beings and in the various levels of life, and above all in man, because man is a complex being. From the physical and chemical reactions of his body to his possibility of spiritual consciousness and of communion with God. Therefore, in man, the various manifestations of love coexist and intermingle. Another important fact is that these various levels do not remain isolated, but there are continuous actions, reactions, and interactions between them, especially in man. Therefore, the activities of one level act on and influence the activities of another, and so on. Therefore, understand that this is a source of confusion, misunderstanding, and error, but also that it offers great opportunities for transformation, regeneration, and sublimation, and we will talk about this next time. We will study, in a more precise and concrete way, its various manifestations in humans, the various manifestations in reciprocal relationships, and the practical consequences for our elevation, for our improvement. Thank you for listening to Readings from Roberto, and we hope you will tune in to our next reading. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to share the wisdom.